G'day, you subterranean neophytes. I'm going to run you through how to use an angle grinder in this video. So first up, we've got the storage wall. We've got our four-way outlets, our face shields, our discs, and our grinders. So the next thing you need to know are the different types of discs we have. So we've got the grinding disc, which we use for like bulk removal of material, like grinding down welds, that kind of thing. Next up, we've got flap discs. So these are like a flap of sandpaper stuck to a wheel. These are for like smoothing operations and less aggressive grinding. And then lastly, we've got a cut-off wheel, which are very thin ceramic discs that we use for cutting into metal and cutting parts off of each other. So when you go to change a disc, the first thing you need to do is unplug the grinder from the power source. Once it's unplugged, you can press this button on the back of the head of the grinder. That will stop the grinder from rotating, the disc from rotating. So you can see when the button's pressed in, the disc stops. And I'd use my left hand for that. I'll then put the handle of the grinder onto the table and I'll grab my nut spanner with the handle of the nut spanner facing towards me. And then all I have to do is push down on that handle and it should pop off quite easily. You can take the nut and disc off by hand. And then when you go to put a new disc on, you're going to put it so that the label is facing, in the case of a grinding disc, towards the grinder, still holding the button, and putting the nut on, doing it up by hand, making sure the disc is centered, and then doing the disc hand tight. Don't use the spanner for tightening the discs. It's important that you have your nut facing the correct direction for each of the discs. So you can see that on one side of it, it's got a raised flange, on the other side, it's got an indent. So depending on the disc, it needs to go a certain direction. For the thicker grinding discs, you have the raised flange pointing toward the disc. So it sits in that captures the flange in the disc. On the thinner flap disc, the flat side without the flange is facing the disc. And that is the same for the cut-off wheel. You've got the flat side of the nut facing the disc. As for your PPE, you should have safety glasses on, you should have some form of hearing protection, either earmuffs or earplugs, an apron is recommended, and you need to have a face shield on as well. When you go to set your grinder up, plug the four-way outlet into the power point, plug the extension cord into the four-way outlet. You can have up to 2 grinders per outlet, and then from the extension cord, plug the grinder. Make sure that the extension cord is out of the way. So whenever you finish grinding, put your grinder down on its back with the disc facing up. This just reduces the risk of it hitting anything when you're putting it onto the work surface. When you go to use a cut-off wheel, you want to have your right hand holding the handle of the grinder on top of the grinder. The left hand is going to be on the body of the grinder, and you're holding the whole grinder to the left of your body. When you go to make your cut, that's going to ensure that the sparks are kind of shooting past your body, and they're not going to be hitting you in the side, melting your pants, which is another reason why we need to wear aprons, because that spark shower will melt your pants. And when I'm cutting, I'm using the front bottom of the cut-off wheel, okay? Lightly moving it forwards and backwards a little bit just to help speed the cut up until you cut through. When we go to use a flap disc or a grinding disc, we're going to hold the grinder flat across our body with the handle to the left. Holding the grinder and the disc on roughly a 45-degree angle, we're going to just do short passes across the work in a pulling towards ourselves to start with, and then once we've smoothed out some of the larger bumps, we can go forwards and backwards across the surface. When I'm using the flap disc, my pressure is less than when I'm using a grinding disc. This just gives you a bit more control over the results you're going to be getting. When we're using the grinding disc, however, it should only take you, you can apply a lot more pressure, and it should only take you like a few seconds realistically to grind off a weld, as you can see in this video. when we're finished grinding, we want to wrap the handle up in a figure 8 pattern. So hold the grinder in your left hand, go around the handle, cross over the body of the grinder, wrap around the base of the grinder, cross over, handle, cross over, and just continue that pattern until it's all wrapped up.